Hey, what's up guys? In this video, I'm going to show you how to factor a quadratic trinomial when it has a greatest common factor, aka GCF. So my trinomial that I have, 8z squared plus 20z minus 48, it is a quadratic because the degree is 2, the highest exponent is 2, and trinomial, well, we have 3 different terms. When you guys look at the coefficients and the constants, or the numbers in front of the variables, we have an 8 for this trinomial, a 20 and a 48. Sometimes they do have a common factor that you guys can factor out. Now you always want to factor out the greatest common factor that you guys can find, and you guys are going to put that outside a parenthesis. So if you think about the 8, the 20, and the 48, well, what number goes into the 8, the 20, and the 48? And this is the greatest number. That will be 4. 4 goes into 8, 4 goes into 20, and 4 goes into 48. Now, you might be thinking, well, what about 2? 2 goes into 8, 2 goes into 20, and 2 goes into 48. And that is correct, but it's not the greatest number. 4 is bigger than 2. So the greatest common factor is 4. Now, sometimes my student says, what about the 8? Well, the 8 doesn't go into 20. So that's why 8 cannot be a greatest common factor. 8 goes into 8, 8 goes into 48, but not the 20. The greatest common factor must go into all the numbers in that trinomial. So we are going to make a parenthesis like this. I'm going to factor out the greatest common factor, and we said it was 4. So I'm going to put here on the top GCF, so you guys remember that is the greatest common factor. And you guys are going to start dividing the trinomial by that value, that number. So the 8, the first term, has a z squared. So the 8 divided by 4, that's going to be 2. So I'm going to have a 2z squared inside the parentheses, plus the next term, we have a 20 divided by 4. That's going to be 5. And we have a z. And the last one is a minus. And 48 divided by 4, that's going to be 12. So 1, 2. So 48 divided by 4 is 12. Now you guys do have a GCF outside, but we still have a trinomial inside of the parentheses. So we also have to check if we can factor this trinomial, and the method I use is using an X diagram. So when you guys factor using the X diagram, we need to know the A, the B, and the C value. So this is the standard form. And on my previous videos, I explained what is the standard form for a quadratic trinomial. But basically, what it is, the A value is going to be with the variable that has a square. So my A will be on top, not on top, the one with the C squared. So this is your A right here. B is the one with the Z, just a regular Z, and most of the times it is in the middle. And C is going to be your constant, the number with no variable. So when we factor using the X diagram, step number 1, I make an X just like this. On the top, I'm going to write the product of A and C. So I multiply A times C. So I have a 2 times a negative 12. And you always have to be careful with the signs. So 2 times negative 12, that's negative 24. On the bottom of that number, I'm going to write down my B value. And my B value is positive 5. So I'm going to have a 5 right here. Now the goal for the X diagram, you need to find 2 factors that will multiply to negative 24, but at the same time they do combine, or they add or subtract to the positive 5. So we find those 2 numbers, and you just make a list. What I do on the side of the X diagram, I'm going to start making a list of pairs, numbers that actually multiply to negative 24. Now, since it is a negative, one of those factors has to be negative, and since the B value is positive, the biggest number will be positive. That's a trick that you guys can use. If this number is negative, well, one of them has to be negative, one factor, and whatever the sign of this B value is, the biggest number will have that same sign. So I know that negative 1 times 24 is negative 24, but that's not going to give me 5. They do not combine, add or subtract to positive 5. I know that negative 2 times 12 is negative 24, but it's not going to give me a positive 5. I know that negative 3 times 8 is negative 24. And notice, negative 3 plus 8, that's a positive 8. Negative 3 plus 8 will give me a positive 5. So the factors that we need to use are the negative 3 and the positive 8. So I'm going to put a negative 3 here and a positive 8 over here. So my second step, I am going to write my two binomials just like this. And when you guys are writing your binomials, I'm going to go back and I'm going to use the a value. And careful with the variable, it's not an x, it's a z, so we're going to have to use a z. So I'm going to write down the a value twice in front of the parentheses. So here, the a value is 2. So I'm going to put a 2 here, a 2 over here. And you're going to split up your c squared. So that's going to be a z times a z. So let me bring down the a value, 2 with the z, and 2 with the c on the second parentheses. Then I'm going to take my factors. So the negative 3 goes inside the first parentheses, and the positive 8 goes inside the second parentheses, positive 8. Now, when you guys multiply, if you notice, 2z times 2z, that's going to be 4c squared. Well, we don't have a 4, we have a 2. So in this step, if you can divide the binomials by its greatest common factor, you have to. So going back to 2z minus 3, the 2 and the 3 do not have a common factor, so you guys cannot divide. But these ones, 2c plus 8, they do have a common factor, and the greatest common factor is 2. You guys can divide by 2. 2 divided by 2 and 8 divided by 2. You guys can do that. So for my third step, I'm going to write my two parentheses again. The first one, we didn't divide by anything, so you just keep the 2z minus 3. The second parenthesis, you guys are going to divide. 2 divided by 2, that's a 1z, and 8 divided by 2 is going to be 4. So plus 4. Also, remember that GCF that we factor out up here, GCF is 4. Well, you guys have to write that down in your answer. So I'm going to bring that number all the way outside of the parentheses because it is the greatest common factor that we factor out. So the 4 must go outside. We don't need that 1. I'm looking at this 1z. We don't need that 1 next to the z. You guys can erase it. So I'm just going to rewrite my answer. So we have 4 outside of the parentheses times the quantity of 2z minus 3 times the quantity of z plus 4. So those are the factors of that trinomial. If you multiply, we're not doing that in this video, but if you guys multiply the binomials and then you distribute the 4, so you multiply this using the distributive property, the two binomials, and then you distribute the 4, you guys will get this trinomial back. And that's the idea when you guys factor. You want to find the factors, parentheses, or polynomials that when you multiply them together, you guys will get this polynomial back. So this is a quadratic trinomial, so we must get that. And that's one way to check. You can multiply and just make sure that you guys get this trinomial back. So that's just an option. So this is how you factor when you guys have a GCF, greatest common factor, and at the same time you guys might be able to factor the trinomial using the X diagram. I hope you guys like my video. If you guys like my videos, you guys can click that like button. You can also subscribe to my channel so you guys know when I upload new videos. And the only way to get good at math is by practice. So make sure you guys practice, and I'll see you guys later.